Hi. All this talk about food and stuff keeps me hungry here. And if you've ever eaten popcorn, you know you get that little thing stuck in your teeth. You know, that's the outer covering on the corn. It's called the pericarp. It has something to do with this talk, but not quite yet. Thank you all for coming. The title of this talk is Indigenous Biotechnology, or How Polenta Isn't Just Italian. Excuse me. Sorry, not all plans work. It's a little, it's an interesting title, as most of the talks had incredibly interesting titles. Polenta, however, doesn't have much to do with indigenous biotechnology. I can tell you that as a child growing up in my Italian family home, my grandmother used to spread polenta out on the kitchen table, and everyone would gather around the table and just shovel it in. But she never added any ash to it. Okay, so corn is the New World's single most important contribution to the human diet. In ethnobotany, this grain is discussed more than any other food. I am here today to honor this centuries-old practice of how Native Americans made corn more digestible, and also to provide a Western scientific understanding of how this process works. The ancient process to make corn more digestible was first developed in Mesoamerica, where maize was originally cultivated. Early evidence is found in the southern part of Guatemala, the Guatemalan coast, with equipment dating from about 1500 BC. Basically, this process makes corn more digestible. Now, corn is a pretty wonderful food. Okay, of the 9 amino acids the body can't synthesize, corn is lacking in lysine, which is, most grains are lacking in lysine. It's also lacking in tryptophan, okay? But more importantly, what corn is lacking in is niacin, okay? Although niacin is present in corn, it can't be assimilated by the intestines as corn goes through, okay? Niacin is vitamin B3, so named because it was the third vitamin B discovered, okay? Niacin is important in the repair of DNA, and it's also important in the production of steroid hormones in the adrenal glands. So we all need niacin, okay? I have a bunch of props, okay, because they told me I couldn't do PowerPoint, so I thought I'd have to bring something, because I'm so used to teaching, and if I don't have something to show my students, they're like, we just have to listen to you? You know? That's nothing. No one just wants to listen to you. So give me just a second to pull some of these out. I'm going to have these at the back of the room, or I might pass them around here, depending upon how far I get. Sorry, I got carried away. Okay, all this came about because I was started teaching ethnobotany at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and I wanted to talk about blue corn, and I wanted to add a little bit of Western science to the understanding of blue corn. And so this is obviously blue corn that we grew on campus, and there was a lot of talk about the Peky bread, okay? And so I started just going a little further into what makes Peky more nutritional than just eating regular corn, okay? And while we don't really know how, and we don't really know when, but we do know that Native Americans discovered, were given by the Creator, decided that adding ash, or the ash of wood products, to corn makes it more digestible, okay? So we have the blue corn. Then we have the blue corn meal, which is ground up. Now, if you take the blue corn meal and you add water to it, okay, it sort of looks like this, and you have a pH of about 6.4. For those of you who forgotten your high school chemistry, pH goes from 1 to 14, with 1 being acidic and 14 being basic, okay? So the higher you go up in the scale from 6, the more alkaline you become, okay? So this has a pH of about 6.4. If you add, and for the most part, in New Mexico or in the Southwest, you're going to be adding ash from 2 plants, okay? And I think you could add them from just about any wood plant, but because these 2 plants are very abundant, this is what they're added. So you're adding 4-winged saltbush, Atriplex canescens, to it. You're going to dry this out and then burn it and get the ash. Or you're going to be adding, you all know this one, you're all going to be adding juniper to it, okay? So I have some juniper ash that I burn in a big ceremony at school, anyway. And then if you add the ash to the blue cornmeal, okay, and if you add only just a half a teaspoon, okay, you're going to get a pH of 7.1. And what you notice is that immediately you've got a change in color, okay? So you don't have to have a pH meter in your home to do this. You can simply look at and see how the color changes, and you know you're getting down to a more alkaline substance, okay? So then if you add 1 teaspoon, you get to a pH of 7.6, so you're getting darker and you're getting more alkaline. And then finally, if you get to 1 tablespoon of ash, you get a pH of 8, so you're getting higher and higher. What this does is it dissolves and gets rid of that pericarp, okay? So it makes corn a whole lot more digestible. It makes it easier to chew. It also makes it something that you can actually make into a dough, so you can make tamales, so you can make the products where you have to have the corn stick together. But what's really interesting about this is that if there were many different communities that relied heavily on just corn. It was rarely Native American communities that relied heavily on corn, just corn, but if they did, they added ash so they didn't have to worry about the nutritional lackings in corn, okay? In the U.S. in the 1930s, particularly in the American South, there was a disease that was pretty prevalent called pellagra. And this was a disease that is primarily from the lack of niacin in the corn. And the people living in the South didn't really know about nixtamalization, which is the fancy name for the chemical process of adding alkaline to corn. It comes from the Aztec language nixtal, and then it's changed into the Spanish to nixtamali and nixtamalization. Okay, so you're adding the ash. Pellagra is a pretty awful disease. It occurs a little bit today in Egypt and in parts of India where people primarily eat just corn, okay? And it's a disease characterized by 4 Ds, brace yourself, dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, and death, okay? So it's actually a pretty bad disease. And in the 1930s, it was estimated that about 200,000 people suffered from this in the southern part of the United States. And about half of the people in the mental institutions were actually just a nutritional deficiency. And it was primarily this pellagra and a lot of other nutritional things that caused Congress in 1941 to come up with the Vitamin Fortification of Bread Act. Okay, so this is how we ended up with Wonder Bread, okay, with all those vitamins and minerals added to Wonder Bread. So the alkalinity dissolves the pericarp, okay, it loosens the hulls from the kernels, makes the corn more easily ground. It also frees up some of the other amino acids that are in corn. And it also reduces by about 94% the mycotoxins. And mycotoxins are a result from a mold that commonly infect corn, okay? And these toxins that are on these mycotoxins are purportedly putative carcinogens. So by adding ash to this and by increasing the pH, you essentially also reduce the toxicity of these mycotoxins that infect corn. So there's lots of wonderful different ways in which corn has been changed, okay? So this indigenous biotechnology has greatly benefited communities dependent upon corn. How, when, and why this process was invented, given, or received from the Creator will never exactly be known. What we do know is that Native Americans turned out to be brilliant chemists, and this process has made corn even better food. I'll end with a little story that when I first started teaching at the Institute of American Indian Arts, I was trying to get my students to understand this and pull it out of them, and I was going, okay, tell me what Native Americans added to corn to make it more digestible. And they had these blank stares. And I said, come on, tell me, what is it? And finally, one of the Tlingit students from the back in Alaska said, we didn't all grow corn. So I learned a lesson, so thank you very much.